The Invictus Games, the singular passion project and undisputed professional anchor of Prince Harry's post-royal life, has suddenly become the epicenter of a new, highly charged conflict involving Meghan Markle. The foundation of this explosive revelation is not a rumor or an insider whisper, but a piece of alleged royal footage that sources claim was enough to convince the game's organizing body and protective internal voices to effectively block Meghan's comeback to the event's global stage. This unprecedented step, preventing the Duchess of Sussex from participating in an event she once co-hosted, reveals a profound institutional fear that goes far beyond simple public relations management. Word from inside the protected circles suggests the decision to prevent Meghan's return was driven by the contents of this disturbing footage. It was not a clip showing inappropriate behavior in the traditional sense, but one that allegedly exposed a calculated, almost ruthless, manipulation of the game's core purpose. Sources claim the footage reveals moments from a previous Invictus event where Meghan's primary focus was not the veterans or the competition, but the orchestration of her own image and the strategic placement of cameras to capture highly specific, emotionally charged shots designed exclusively for brand enhancement. It allegedly showed the games being treated less as a sacred charitable endeavor and more as a spectacular, global backdrop for the Sussex brand. For Prince Harry, the Invictus Games represent his last unassailable connection to his military service, his integrity, and his commitment to veterans, a link the palace and the public still respects. The integrity of this institution is paramount. The alleged footage, therefore, was viewed internally as proof of an impending, unavoidable contamination. Insiders claim the clip highlights instances of the Sussex team aggressively controlling media access, prioritizing high-value commercial interviews over genuine engagement with participants, and, crucially, appearing to disregard the event's schedule and focus whenever a better opportunity for a personal narrative clip arose. The footage, in short, allegedly demonstrated that for Meghan, the event was a promotional vehicle, not a charitable mission. The urgency of the block, according to sources familiar with the situation, stemmed from the fear of history repeating itself. With Harry already facing immense scrutiny over their commercial deals, allowing Meghan to return in a prominent role was deemed an unacceptable risk. The argument made by the internal voices was stark. The Invictus Games cannot survive a narrative where the focus shifts from the wounded veterans to the commercial demands of the Duchess of Sussex. The game's very reputation, which relies on being apolitical and purely focused on service, was seen as being directly jeopardized by Meghan's participation. Sources suggest that the footage acted as definitive proof for those within the game's administration, who had long harbored concerns about the couple's blurring of professional boundaries. It provided the objective evidence needed to make the difficult, public decision to draw a firm line. This was not a passive request for her to stay home. It was an active institutional move to protect the brand integrity of the Invictus Games from the commercial demands of the Sussex brand. This is the ultimate irony. The vehicle that Harry created to uplift others was now allegedly being viewed as a threat by the very person he championed. The decision was undoubtedly a painful personal blow to Prince Harry, who views the games as an extension of his soul. Insiders claim he was initially resistant, arguing that Meghan's presence was a necessary show of unity and support. However, the severity and undeniable clarity of the footage allegedly convinced key stakeholders that this was a non-negotiable step required for the game's survival. The choice was presented clearly: protect the games or protect the wife. By making the decision to exclude Meghan, the game's administration effectively sided with the institution's integrity over the family's image. The royal footage, therefore, became the silent, objective witness that mandated the Duchess's exile from the event she once proudly stood beside. This incident underscores a brutal truth for the Sussexes. Their commercial freedom in America is continually at odds with the pure, uncompensated service demanded by the institutions of the old world they left behind. The emergence of the alleged royal footage and the resulting decision to block Meghan Markle from participating in the Invictus Games reveals a deep-seated institutional fear within the event's administration. The irreversible contamination of a sacred charity by commercial celebrity. Sources suggest that the primary concern was not simply the possibility of media chaos, but the calculating nature of Meghan's previous involvement, as purportedly captured on the footage. Insiders claim that the clip detailed specific instructions given by members of the Sussex team to media personnel regarding angles, lighting, and the precise moments to focus solely on the Duchess, often overshadowing the achievements and stories of the wounded veterans themselves. This alleged manipulation struck at the heart of the Invictus Games ethos. The Games are built on a philosophy of pure, uncompensated service, recovery, and respect for the military community. The internal viewing of the footage, which, according to reports, acted as a silent, unassailable witness, provided definitive evidence that the Games were being strategically cannibalized to feed the Sussex brand's insatiable need for emotionally resonant content. The argument was stark. If the audience's primary takeaway from Invictus is the Duchess's dress or her personal interaction with Harry, then the entire purpose of the event is lost, and the veterans are reduced to mere background props for a celebrity narrative. The decision to implement the block was reportedly not easy, as it meant directly confronting Prince Harry, the founder and passionate driving force behind the Games. However, sources familiar with the administration's thinking emphasize that the choice was necessary to prevent a permanent, existential crisis. Unlike the monarchy, which can absorb endless criticism due to centuries of history, a charity must maintain absolute integrity and public trust to survive. If the Invictus Games were seen as a recurring set piece for the Sussexes' commercial documentaries or their lucrative platform deals, donor confidence and public respect would collapse overnight. Furthermore, the footage allegedly highlighted another critical concern: the blurring of lines between official royal conduct and commercial content creation. Since stepping back from royal duties, Harry and Meghan have been obligated to maintain a clear division between their charitable endeavors and their paid production work. Sources claim the footage suggested that members of the Sussex team, perhaps unintentionally, were treating the high-security, charitable event as a de facto set for future content, scouting locations and directing moments with a view towards commercial monetization. This conflation of charitable service and commercial exploitation was deemed an intolerable threat to the Games' non-profit status and mission. The severity of the block, according to insiders, was amplified by the current public scrutiny surrounding the Sussexes' deals, particularly the reports of their struggles to deliver high-value content to streaming partners. The Invictus Games administration feared that, given the couple's professional pressures, the upcoming event would be utilized with even greater commercial urgency, leading to an even more aggressive takeover of the media narrative. The block, therefore, was a preemptive, defensive strike to protect the integrity of the Games from the financial desperation of the Sussex brand. The fallout of the block has been particularly painful for Harry. Insiders claim he fully accepted the necessity of the decision after viewing the footage and understanding the depth of the institutional fear. But the personal humiliation is immense. The Games are his legacy, his refuge, and the one area where his integrity has remained largely untouched. The fact that the very institution he created felt compelled to exclude his wife to save its reputation speaks volumes about the perceived threat she poses to the sanctity of service. This incident serves as a crucial, agonizing reminder to Harry that his loyalty to his wife and his loyalty to his creation, the Invictus Games, are now viewed by institutions as being mutually exclusive. The footage did not just block Meghan, it drew an undeniable line in the sand between service and celebrity. The institutional decision to block Meghan Markle from the Invictus Games, enforced by the damning evidence of the alleged royal footage, marks a critical and potentially irreparable turning point in Prince Harry's post-royal life. The Games were Harry's unassailable ground, the one place where his actions were universally praised and his commitment to service remained pure. The forced separation of his wife from this event reveals the agonizing truth that the world of genuine charity views the Sussex brand not as an asset, but as a liability that must be rigorously contained. Sources close to Harry suggest that the most devastating aspect of the ordeal was the realization that the footage provided objective proof of the internal conflicts he had long sought to deny. While he always defended Meghan's intentions, the alleged visual evidence demonstrating the meticulous orchestration of media moments at the expense of the game's focus was impossible to overlook. Insiders claim that Harry has been left wrestling with the devastating knowledge that his two core loyalties, to his wife and to his veteran community, have been deemed incompatible by the very organization he created. The humiliation is immense. The founder of the Games was powerless to protect his wife because the Games themselves needed protection from her. The incident underscores the profound, continuous struggle the Duke and Duchess face in reconciling their lives. They desperately need the credibility of service provided by events like Invictus, but they require the commercial content provided by their production deals. The footage allegedly proved that these two needs cannot coexist. The pursuit of commercial gold inevitably tarnishes the silver of charitable endeavor. The Invictus administration, by blocking Meghan, has effectively sent a resounding message to the entire charitable world. Genuine service requires uncompensated sacrifice, not strategic monetization. This public, enforced separation from the Invictus stage will have lasting ramifications for Meghan's public identity. For years, she has carefully cultivated the image of the humanitarian, the champion of marginalized voices, and the partner committed to service. The block, however, casts a harsh shadow over this image, suggesting that her charitable actions are viewed by credible institutions as being primarily transactional. The narrative shifts from Meghan supports veterans to Meghan uses veterans for content, a distinction that is professionally fatal in the charitable sector. Insiders predict that other nonprofit organizations will now exercise extreme caution before inviting the Duchess to participate in high-profile events, fearing the same risk of brand contamination. Furthermore, the royal footage incident is viewed by palace observers as a significant, quiet victory for the anti-Sussex factions within the monarchy. The palace has long sought a firm, non-negotiable boundary between the working royals and the commercial activities of the Sussexes. The Invictus administration, acting independently but in alignment with the values of the monarchy, achieved that boundary where the palace could not. The result is a precedent. If the Sussexes attempt to utilize British-founded institutions or Commonwealth events for their brand promotion, those institutions now have a powerful, objective justification to say no. The future of Harry's involvement with the Games is now contingent on his ability to rebuild trust and prove that the organization is fully insulated from his commercial life. Sources claim he is under immense pressure to demonstrate renewed, unwavering commitment, ensuring the Games remain fiercely non-partisan and non-commercial. This will likely necessitate a strict separation of his personal media appearances and the event's official coverage, further isolating him professionally at the very event that defines his purpose. Ultimately, the block is an agonizing lesson in professional incompatibility. Prince Harry believed his love could bridge the gap between service and celebrity. The royal footage, according to reports, proved that the gap is an unbridgeable chasm. He is left with the heartbreaking consequence. To maintain the integrity of his life's work, he must enforce the very distance he fought so hard to escape. The Invictus Games were saved, but the separation was paid for with a deep and painful emotional cost to its founder.